Hello everyone, welcome to Res Snapper. My name's MJ and this is Snap or Pass, the series where we look at the brand new cards coming to Marvel Snap each week. And this week it's ARES. ARES is a 4/6 on reveal. Compare the power of the top 3 cards of both decks. If your total is higher, plus 6 power. We're going to be looking at the Spotlight week that he is featured in, counters, locations that are favourable and not so, decks, and ultimately if he's a Snap or Pass. You can use the chapters below if you want to skip to a specific section, but let's look at the Spotlight caches first. Actually, before we do that, please subscribe if you're watching this video and you enjoy it, or you enjoy this series and you've not subscribed. Please do so, it really does help me out, and click the like button. Anyway, the Spotlight caches, he's alongside Ms. Marvel and Misery. Now these are all Series 5 cards, so in terms of value, it's actually not a bad week for value. Ms. Marvel is, I would say, good. A pretty average / good card. I think she's probably fractionally underpaid if you think about her total power output. It's like in the 14 range, so we're talking about a power that is actually higher than ARES here. But with the presence of Clog, that is the main downside of Ms. Marvel. You can't always control or trigger that ability for her to punch out the sides with her big fists. And yeah, fine, that's enough to talk about that. Misery. Misery is an enjoyable card, basically a mill card. Pretty much has only seen success in that deck. But I think she's fine, like good. And ARES, obviously, we'll discuss in this video if he is good. So overall, this is a fine Spotlight week. Not the best, not the worst. Now, let's talk about the mechanics of the card. This is probably the most simple and potentially uninteresting card I've ever looked at in Snap or Pass. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's bad. But there's not masses to discuss here, but let's talk about the things that we can discuss. In terms of the archetypes that I think he'll fit into, I think Scar is the obvious natural inclusion for him here, alongside Surtur and that sort of vibes. Good cards deck, could he fit in that? With the consideration of basically in a good cards deck, you're generally playing stuff that is slightly higher tempo or has a good base power along with a good ability, so you'll typically probably have a higher power than your opponent, and so ARES will trigger. And then finally, on reveal style decks. This is obviously an on reveal effect, and it is a fairly powerful one at that. Plus 6. Boy! Turn the lights off. It's not that kind of... I meant to say 6. Plus 6 is a pretty powerful effect. Like, that is a lot. So, the interesting thing about ARES is actually he will show both players the total power of the top 3 cards of each deck. So we saw the animation in the developer update video. I'll actually probably put that on screen right now. So you can see there is this extra element of information to ARES, which is the most interesting thing about the card, really. So you're going to have an idea, a rough idea of the total power output they'll have available to them from the next cards that they'll draw. Now, there is a slight complication to that in that you don't know what they've already got in their hand. However, in something like a Hela deck, if their total power is like 30 plus, you kind of probably know the Infinite is in those cards that they're going to draw. So there is that kind of extra amount of information on whether you should stay in the game on the odd occasion. I don't think it's going to be super relevant, but it is interesting. And as I said, this is a fairly simple card. It is similar to other 4-cost cards which gain power like Rescue and Jessica Jones, except higher potential power and synergy. And it's immediate, so yeah. Pros. It's the highest power 4-cost card. Yeah, like in a single location, highest power you can achieve is 12. Previously it's what? 10? There's a couple of cards that are 10, so Cull Obsidian, Crossbones. Yes, this is kind of the new gold standard for a high power in one location 4-cost card, but it does have some caveats, whereas some of those other cards are just like base stats. He can trigger multiple times via cards like Grandmaster, Wong and Arnim Zola. could be interesting. We do think about the Arnim Zola. If you're able to duplicate this card and get it up to an 18 power on a couple of other locations, that might be quite good. Crucial to remember, however, that actually Arnim Zola negatively synergizes with the on-reveal effect of Ares, so you probably can't afford many 0 power or low power cards in that style of deck if that's what you're doing. Same probably goes for Wong as well, with the lower power. And he might fit well into a lot of decks, even if they simply play cards with fair power. If you are playing even like fractionally above average base power on all of the cards in your deck, as we said, not we, as I said. I just had to delete a load of footage because I just was chatting absolute bollocks and then I just completely zoned out. This is what we're dealing with on this channel. Cons. Lots of counters. There's lots of things that counter him. We'll obviously look at them in the dedicated counter section in a minute, but there's loads, to be fair. And he's kind of boring. That's it. That's all there is, guys. That's all I could possibly say about this guy. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you. No, but yeah, and because we just haven't discussed that much in this section in comparison to previous weeks, I've put a picture of Taylor Swift here. And I've put the quote, I got a blank space, baby. I'll write your name. Right, location. So, actually, one really good thing about Ares is he's got lots of good locations and not really many bad ones. So, good locations include Carmartage, being able to get up to that 18 power straight away is really nice. Cloning Vats, get one in there, it's 18 power. Hell, go absolutely electric, get another one in there on the next turn. That next one is what? 24 power, and then you've got a 24 power card in your hand that has the potential to go up to 30, and you still have 2 energy left over. So very interesting. Obviously Shang-Chi warning, but Castle Blackstone, really nice. It allows you to really get ahead on that location with minimum input. Bar Sinister is nuts. If you think about playing, let's just think about playing a Hulkling into Bar Sinister, or a Hulk, whatever, a 12 power card. They get up to what, 48 power. If you play Ares into it, your first one is 12, sure, but then your copies are like 18s, and so you're able to win a location where they can only get up to similar power levels if they like pay a lot more energy. So that's pretty interesting. Kiln is super good with Ares because it's pretty unlikely that they're playing something that is a 412 in power. Negative Zone is very nice for a couple of very interesting reasons. First of all, again, normally you have to put quite a higher energy output into Negative Zone to combat the -3. However, Ares is good value at doing that, but also crucially stays under the 9, or I should say stays under the 10 power limit that Shang-Chi kills, of course. Krakoa, absolutely mega cracked, given the 12 power. Again, this conversation of 12 power is usually reserved for much a higher cost. I didn't say those words in quite the right order, but hopefully you understood what I said anyway. Sinister London, similar reasons to everything else we've discussed. Quantum Tunnel, it could be bloody interesting. You're playing Ares, generally speaking, alongside other cards which have a high power. Do you really mind sticking Ares in your deck with this extra power so that you can potentially play him later and you're getting something out anyway? I don't think you do too much. And TVA, pretty much the highest tempo card on the 4th turn of the game, so you're probably going to win there. And Valhalla Core, being able to duplicate that effect again is a little bit more restrictive than the Carmartage, of course, but it's still valid. Yeah, so plenty of good locations. In fact, this is like loads of good locations, so lots of good opportunity for Ares in this respect. Only one bad one that could really highlight, and that's Nowhere. The on-reveal effect doesn't happen. One thing that I don't think I've ever really addressed actually is, in these videos I say, oh, there's only one bad location. There is obviously locations that are bad for basically every card. I only really feature the ones where they are above average bad, or specifically desynergize with the card when I talk about bad locations. Possibly goes without saying, but possibly doesn't. Anyway, let's talk about counters, guys. We've got a handful here, and some are quite devastating, you know. So first and foremost, we've got Korg, and to a lesser extent, Rock Slide. They're going to shuffle rocks into your deck, and these rocks are 0 power, so it's going to bring down the likelihood that your Ares will actually accurately trigger. Especially if they've got priority and they play Rock Slide on turn 4, that really is going to screw you up. Shadow King is going to be able to return Ares back down to 6. Cosmo, just going to stop it outright. Shang-Chi is going to be able to kill him. Magneto, of course, can pull Ares out of those locations. Magneto, just in general, can sometimes be a really devastating card for those Surtur-style decks. That being said, you do still have so much power that it's not always going to work. And this is the first time that Infinite has ever been a counter. This is very sort of outskirts counter. Basically, if Infinite is in their deck and it happens to be in those 3 cards that you're battling against, you're vaguely unlikely to beat it if they've got Infinite there. But this is not that serious of a counter, but it's worth spending 2 seconds of a fragment of a video talking about. But let's talk about Synergies on my 4th attempt filming this section because I'm just devolving into lunacy. Zabu reduces the cost of 4 cost cards. But I have to say, guys, I agree with my boy Alex Kocher, one of my favourite Marvel Snap content creators, absolute legend. He does not like Zabu, and I'm sort of agreeing. I don't really like the way that when you put Zabu in your deck, it completely changes like your deck building experience, and then if you don't draw the Zabu, you just feel like shit. So I'm not even sure about Zabu, but it is undeniable that it does at least synergize with Ares and a lot of the other decks that you a lot of the other cards that you would typically play alongside Ares in these style of decks, like Crossbones and Color Obsidian, the cards that we've discussed. Surtur, pretty much the best. Oh god, sorry, on my original slide I had Surtur as a 3-5 still. He has now come down to 3-4, as you're seeing, because I've fixed the mistake, so I shouldn't even discuss the mistake, but I have anyway. Yes, Surtur is going to be fantastic with Ares. And Scar. These guys all feed into each other. They're all best friends. Let's talk about the decks. The first deck I've got for you is, as always, the budget deck. This is called Flexi Reveal. This is amping up on the on-reveal side of the card. We want to either play things like Grandmaster or Wong to duplicate the effects of not only Ares but also other cards in our deck that we might want to do. We've got powerful, cheap on-reveals like Iceman and the disruptiveness of Korg. We've got a good little Medusa here, could be fun. We've also got Psylocke to enable us to play some of these cards a little bit sooner. You don't necessarily have to play Psylocke on curve on turn 2, allowing you to get out either an early Wong or an early Ares, but you could hold it another turn and play out an early Black Panther. We also have Arnim Zola to duplicate some of these effects, and we've got Odin. We can go wide with the Odin and Ironheart, other Tings and stuff. Could be fun, but it is a budget deck, so you're not getting the best out of things here. Really, where I see Ares is working best is in the Scar archetype, and here is Dig Scars. This is a pun, sort of like, talks about like chicks dig scars, and it's sort of about that. That's what I'm doing there. Anyway, so we've got several lower costed cards here. Because we've got several lower costed cards like Hood, Zabu and Martyr, I've actually stuck Black Swan in here. I'm not sure you want to do too much else with your early turn. And I know I did just criticise Zabu a minute ago, but he would work well in this deck. But anyway, the interesting thing about playing Black Swan in here is on those later turns, when you do just want to play your higher power cards, it allows you a little bit of extra flexibility, and you're able to greater play down the cards. That is exactly what Black Swan does. There is an argument that perhaps instead of a Tumor or Crossbones, you could have the Color Obsidian in here. But I think you're more likely going to be winning a location than definitely having a 1-cost card down on there. However, conversely to that, we do have the Hood and a Tumor combination here too. And actually I should say the Hood into Demon into Black Swan means that you can fit in that Hood, the Demon rather, more consistently. And then the rest of the deck is just filled out by our nice 10 costs that we like. So Black Panther, we've got Aero for a bit of disruption. Ultimately we're going to be playing down Scar, and we've also got Magneto too. So could be a cool version of the deck. Moving on to my final deck, this is the Just Good Stats deck. So we're going to be relying on triggering Ares' ability here by playing high tempo cards like Silk, like Baron Zemo. Yeah, there's Baron Zemo in here. You'll even see Martyr. You'll see Martyr in a couple of these decks. Guys, I am an absolute Martyr, like, coper, would you call it? But I wouldn't even call it coping, because I don't care what anyone says, she's a good card. I know she's got a shit, like, win rate. I could not give a, like, fuck, to be honest, what anyone says. She is a good card. Don't care. Oh, she moves and loses again. Don't let her move then. Don't let her move. Like, so in this deck, we've got things like Ultron and Baron Zemo. We're just not going to let her move, guys. We're going to fill up the board. Also got, obviously, the Ares in here. But because we have only got one card in this deck that is below 3 power, and that's Kate Bishop, and yes, she can actually generate more. But because we got that, we also got a really interesting and crucial Lady Deathstrike here. We can play Lady Deathstrike pretty much anywhere. We're not going to affect our board, and we're going to absolutely slaughter theirs. So that could be good fun too. It's just good stuff. Just good cards. That is what the deck is all about. Little reminder, if you didn't like the video and subscribe earlier on, please do so now. Like, if you're watching to this point and you've not subscribed, just do it. Makes me feel better. And it makes you feel better in a way too, because you'll get my videos coming to you. Star ratings. Overall, I think Ares is a good card. Fractionally above average, probably. I've given him 3.5 stars. From a fun perspective, I think 3.5. He's got kind of a cool animation. I don't think he's too much more fun than that. Within the archetype, I actually think he's 4.5 stars. Pretty much auto-include in the Surtur decks. I think he's the natural inclusion above things like Crossbones and Colour Obsidian. He's less restrictive. So, and he's less restrictive and he's got higher power. So he's definitely a fantastic card for that deck. He's the best thing they've had in, well, since that archetype came out a couple of months ago. And is he competitive? I actually do think he's good. I think he's actually going to be kind of annoying. He's got really high power, and the only sensible way to deal with him is Shang-Chi. I know I said Shadow King was a counter, but really, you're only bringing him down to 6, and you're playing 2 power to bring him down that far, so you might still be in trouble. So, ultimately, is he a snap or pass? He's actually a pass in my eyes. As I said, guys, I just think he's a bit boring. He's primarily fitting in one deck, which is the Surtur deck. If you love that style of deck, obviously that's great for you, and he is a snap. But taking everything into account, he's a little bit boring. He's not doing anything massively new, and the Spotlight week that he's in is not that interesting. He's a pass in my eyes, but I'm not saying it's a bad card, just don't think he's all that special. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're new, please subscribe. I've asked you to subscribe like 3 times now. I'd bloody unsubscribe because I'm getting annoyed with myself. But no, little shout out as well, guys. We're going to be doing more custom card videos. This weekend, I've got a custom Marvel vs. Capcom season video, but I want to make more. What custom cards do you want to see? What season do you want to see in the game? Let me know. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.